Welcome back to the VybeShift Podcast. I'm truly grateful you're here with me today. This week we have been exploring a deeply human question. How do I stay aligned when my mind pulls me into fear, overwhelm, or reaction? And I really want you to sit with that question for a moment, because almost everyone experiences this. There are moments where we feel grounded, clear, centered, and present. And then suddenly, something shifts. A thought appears, a fear surfaces, an uncertainty enters the mind, and before we even realize it, we are spiraling. The mind starts racing into the future. The body tightens. Emotions intensify. Fear begins creating stories, and many people immediately conclude something is wrong with me. But what if that's not true? What if your system is reacting exactly the way it was conditioned to react? And what if healing begins not by fighting yourself, but by understanding yourself? This is where we're going today. The misunderstanding most people live within. One of the greatest misunderstandings many people carry is the idea that emotional reaction means personal failure. If they feel anxious, they think they're weak. If they feel overwhelmed, they think they're incapable. If they lose momentum, they think they're broken. But reaction is not failure. Reaction is information. Your information systems are constantly gathering information from your environment, your memories, your conditioning, your past experiences, and even your imagined future. And based on all of that input, your nervous system responds. The problem is not that the system reacts. The problem is that most people have never been taught how to observe the system while it is reacting. So instead of observing fear, they become fear. Instead of observing overwhelm, they become overwhelm. Instead of observing the spiral, they get pulled into the spiral. And once that happens, clarity disappears. The mind's addiction to the future. One thing I have been realizing deeply recently is how often the mind abandons the present moment. It is constantly attempting to move ahead, trying to predict, trying to calculate, trying to prevent pain, trying to secure certainty. But life does not always give certainty, and this creates enormous internal tension. The mind says, if I can just figure everything out right now, then maybe I'll finally feel safe. But the problem is, there is always another future scenario to solve, another possibility, another fear, another uncertainty. So the mind keeps running, and eventually the system becomes overloaded. This is one reason why so many people feel exhausted even when they haven't been physically doing much. Because mentally, they have been living inside 20 imagined futures all day long. The body responds to thought. This is something incredibly important to understand. The body responds to thought. If the mind continuously projects fearful futures, the body begins responding as though those futures are already happening. This is why catastrophic thinking feels so physically real. Your heart rate changes, your breath changes, your muscles tighten, your stomach reacts, your nervous system activates. And then the mind interprets the body's reaction as evidence that the fear must be true. That creates a feedback loop. The thought creates the sensation reinforces the thought intensifies the sensation, and suddenly the spiral feels completely believable. But awareness interrupts that loop. The moment you begin observing what is happening, instead of unconsciously becoming it, space begins opening. The present moment as a stabilizing force. One of the deepest realizations I've had is this. The only place where change can actually occur is in the present moment. not yesterday, not tomorrow, not inside imagined futures. Only here, only now. And yet most people spend very little time actually inhabiting the present moment consciously. Their body is here, but their mind is somewhere else entirely. This is why present moment awareness can feel so powerful, because it interrupts the mind's constant movement. You begin noticing things again. Your breathing, the feeling of the chair beneath you, the sensation of water against your skin, the sound of the wind, the rhythm of your footsteps. You begin returning to reality instead of mental projection, and often that alone reduces the intensity of the spiral. You are not the reaction. This may be one of the most important things I say today. You are not the reaction. You are the awareness capable of observing the reaction. Fear may be moving through you, but that does not mean fear is your identity. Overwhelm may be present, but that does not mean overwhelm defines you. A thought may appear, but a thought is not automatically truth. The moment we stop identifying completely with every internal movement, something profound begins happening. We create space, and inside that space, choice begins returning. A practical reset process. So let me offer you a grounded practice you can begin using immediately. The next time you notice yourself spiraling, pause. Not to suppress the feeling, not to fight yourself, not to pretend everything is fine, just pause and ask yourself, what system am I in right now? Am I inside a future-based fear system, a comparison system, a catastrophic thinking system, a survival system? Then ask, what is actually happening right now in this moment? Not tomorrow, not next month, not the imagined scenario, right now. Then bring your attention gently back to the present. Your breathing, your body, your surroundings, the immediate next step. Not your entire life, the next step. This is how grounding begins returning, not through force, but through conscious awareness. Alignment is not perfection. Another thing I think people misunderstand is alignment itself. Alignment does not mean never feeling fear. Alignment does not mean never becoming overwhelmed. Alignment does not mean becoming emotionally untouchable. Alignment means learning how to return again and again and again, because every human being gets pulled. The difference is not whether reaction happens. The difference is whether we become completely consumed by it, and whether we learn to consciously return to ourselves. That is the practice. That is the path. If you take nothing else from today's episode, remember this. Your system reacting does not mean you are failing. It means you're human. And perhaps the real shift begins the moment we stop attacking ourselves for having human experiences, because healing rarely begins through self-war. It begins through awareness, through compassion, through understanding, through conscious returning. And little by little, you begin rebuilding trust within yourself again. Thank you for spending this time with me today. And if today's episode resonated with you, join me on the Vibrational Stage podcast, where we're going to explore the same core problem from an entirely different perspective. Because on the stage, we are going deeper into the hidden systems beneath reaction itself. Topics we will explore on the Vibrational Stage podcast. Why the mind clings to fear. We'll explore why fearful thinking often feels safer to the nervous system than uncertainty itself. The exhaustion of constant internal monitoring. How many people unconsciously spend their lives scanning for danger, rejection, failure, or loss? Emotional survival systems. We'll break down the hidden emotional systems people develop in order to feel protected, accepted, or in control. The difference between awareness and hypervigilance. Why many people mistake overthinking for responsibility and anxiety for preparedness. How reaction becomes identity. We'll explore how repeated emotional patterns slowly become self-concepts if left unobserved. The addiction to solving imaginary futures. Why the mind constantly attempts to solve for X and how this creates chronic overwhelm. The nervous system and the internal safety. How grounding and present moment awareness help communicate safety back to the body. Why rest feels unsafe to many people. A powerful exploration into why slowing down often triggers discomfort, guilt, or anxiety. Moving from mental control to internal trust. How we slowly begin rebuilding trust within ourselves and within life itself. And the beginning of emotional sovereignty. Not controlling emotion, but learning how to remain conscious while emotion moves through us. Please follow the link to the Vibrational Stage podcast. I'll meet you there.